Hey, thanks for joining us over here again at Sodas and Such, and today we're going to be talking about Virgil's root beer. So Virgil's is kind of an interesting soda. If you think of the timeline of the history of sodas, you have kind of a big origin of it happening in the late 1880s, more or less, as it's coming into vogue. And so anything in the last 40 years would generally be considered new, and that's where we find Virgil's at. Virgil's was developed by Ed Crowley and Jill Crowley. What kind of was going on is Ed left his career to chase after this passion of developing the best root beer possible. And so he traveled, the story goes anyways, they traveled all around the world. He sourced all these different ingredients and eventually in the early 90s was able to develop Virgil's root beer as we know it today. Once he got the recipe nailed down, he ended up entering it into the International Fancy Food and Confection Contest, and he ended up winning that in 1994, 1996, and 1997 in the category of Most Outstanding Beverage. And so the pedigree that follows Virgil's root beer is a high one. It's a relatively new soda, says it's sourced by the world's finest ingredients, but has these awards behind it. Now, tracking down the history of sodas is hard to do, and tracking down the motivations of people is even harder, and so it's not explicitly stated, so we shouldn't infer, but in 1999, Ed ended up selling Virgil's root beer to Reed's Soda Inc., and you'll get to know them later on because they brew ginger ale and ginger beer typed products, and that's who distributes them to this day. That's kind of a murky process because Reed's is owned by different people now as well, but that's kind of the brief history. You have a high pedigree root beer who is relatively new, who is sourced on the world's finest ingredients, so you get these other things set into there as well, which we'll talk about in the facts. So Virgil's wants to be thought of as kind of a gourmet soda. So we have the idea of being sourced on the finest ingredients, but there's also a lot of other factors, like it uses natural sugar, cane sugar. It doesn't use any artificial flavors, colorings, or ingredients. Typically, you can find it in Whole Foods stores, like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Meijer. And another neat thing about this soda is actually if you go to their website, you can enter in your zip code and your address and it'll show you where the nearest Virgil's is in the area. So if you want to try some out after this, if you're not a Patreon and you don't get one of these for free in the drawing, then simply type it in. You can head and find your own. Virgil soda also totes itself as being vegan. It's handcrafted, which is an interesting term, and it's also bottled and made here in the United States of America. Price per bottle. Obviously, depends on where you live, what's going on, shortages, deposits, gas to get there, but we always want to get an average and kind of figure things out. So, Virgil's root beer is approximately $5.39 per a 4-pack. Divide that out, 4.39 divided by 4, and you get $1.30 per bottle. So that is rather high on the soda scale on price per bottle, but again, this is marketed as a gourmet soda, but we'll find out a little bit more about that right now. So there's nothing worse than getting a bottle of soda or any other drink and then not being able to open it. So I always like to talk about how the bottle opens, because if you need a bottle opener or a door frame or a car door, you need to be prepared and ready to have access to that. So this is a twist top bottle. Now, let's get a little sound in here. All right, so pretty putsy on the sound, not crispy, not firm, just a little, just kind of letting it out. All right, and now for a little taste. So I'd say as far as Virgil's goes, what's going on here is you have a sweet undertone, and not like a vanilla like an A&W root beer, but you definitely just get this nice smoothness under it. it's not like an A&W from the vanilla. It's not like a Jones's soda where the cane sugar is the first thing that hits you. It's just rather on the back sides of your tongue, just a really smooth sugariness that comes through. Another thing to note is this definitely has like some tones of licorice in it. And so if you have a hindrance against that, if that's not your favorite thing, this may not be something that you're going to enjoy. As you can see here, we've got all the nose. Oops, let's get that backwards. On it, let me rotate it out of the light. All right, and like a lot of things, the ingredients aren't gonna help you out to know whether or not that this is something that you have allergies to or anything like that, because secret ingredients isn't gonna be good for that. But for me, it's definitely one of my favorite root beers. There's not anything necessarily to compare it to. The notes and the sweetness that you get is just such a subtle and curved but even sweetness that you get. And so when you're drinking this, there's nothing in particular that punches out and gets you. There is just a general conglomerate of goodness that kind of washes over your tongue. And so for me, if I was to scale a few things, I would say like 9 on a smoothness. I would say 9 on a taste. As far as sweetness goes, definitely at an 8. This is a really sweet root beer. As far as fizziness, this gets like a 2. It's not uber bubbly. It's not super duper fizzy in your mouth. It's not like drinking a Coca-Cola or anything like that. And so for an overall, I think I would give this a 9 out of 10. Again, it's one of my favorites and it is just a really smooth, good root beer. Now, you found about the bottle opening, you know a little bit of history. No review would be complete without hearing a little bit of the bottle noise. So like a lot of other things with Virgil's root beer, the sound of this bottle is not even really well defined. It's more of a natural root beer. It is just meant to be good. It's meant to have goodness. It's not meant to jump out and get you or to be anything excitingly over the top. It's just meant to be decent. And well, decent's the wrong word. It's meant to be good. And if you want to pay up and pony up for goodness, then this is the root beer for you. Ugh. There we go. You gotta be careful when you... Anyway. Well, again, thanks for joining us over here where we talk about the history of sodas. We talk about how they're made, what is going on in the soda industry, review different types of sodas. And so if you want to be a part of this community and make suggestions, if you want to be able to be entered into a raffle for the extra bottles that we get with every review. So like in the case of Virgil's, comes in a pack of 4, I drink 1. I give the other 3 at random to people who subscribe to the Patreon at any amount. So if you want to enter into that, head over to patreon.com/sodas and such. And again, just want to thank you for being a part of this. Like and comment below. Do you like Virgil's? Do you not like Virgil's? Have you ever tried it? Do you plan to try it? Can you even find it near you? I know from where I used to live in Missouri, it was at least an hour-and-a-half trip to go and find Virgil's. So talk a little bit below. I'd love to interact with you and find out more, and I'll see you on the next one.